The supreme leader of Iran is reportedly packing his bags. For decades he has ruled from the shadows of power, but now, whispers of his imminent departure echo through the marble halls of government. The air in Tehran is thick with uncertainty, as even the most loyal officials sense the shifting tides. Rumors swirl that Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has a plan to flee to Moscow, a sign of just how unstable the regime has become. The idea of the supreme leader seeking refuge abroad, once unthinkable, now seems plausible to many. Diplomats and intelligence agencies are on high alert, watching every movement, every flight, for signs of a dramatic escape. After nearly 5 decades, the Theocracy's foundations are crumbling, not from foreign threats, but from its own people. The cracks in the system are visible everywhere, from the decaying architecture of state buildings to the growing disillusionment in the eyes of ordinary Iranians. The regime, once seemingly invincible, now teeters on the edge of collapse. The streets have become the new parliament, with chants for the regime's end echoing across the nation. Every day, more people join the swelling crowds, their voices rising in unison, demanding change. The city squares and boulevards, once symbols of state power, are now arenas of defiance and hope. Years of corruption, repression, and economic collapse have broken the social contract. Inflation has rendered savings worthless, and once thriving businesses now stand abandoned. The promise of prosperity and justice has been replaced by hardship and distrust, leaving millions struggling to survive. Now, millions face shortages of food, medicine, and water, fueling a revolt that spans the country. Parents worry about feeding their children, and the sick wait in vain for medicine that never arrives. These daily struggles have transformed frustration into fury, and despair into determination. This is no longer a protest, it's a national uprising, uniting Iranians across class, ethnicity, and geography. Students, workers, artists, and even former regime supporters now march side by side. The movement has become a tapestry of voices, each demanding a future free from fear and oppression. The regime's brutal crackdowns only intensify the resistance, as its monopoly on violence begins to fracture. Security forces, once feared, now face growing dissent within their own ranks. Each act of repression only strengthens the resolve of those who refuse to be silenced. Symbols of the Islamic Republic's power are being torn down, and fear has given way to defiance. The images of leaders that once loomed over the nation are now trampled underfoot, replaced by the courage of a people who have found their voice. The question is no longer if the regime will fall, but how soon. As the world watches, the fate of Iran hangs in the balance, shaped by the courage and unity of its people. The unraveling of a theocracy is underway, and a new chapter in Iran's history is being written in the streets. This uprising is unlike any before. It's not about a single injustice, but a tidal wave of grievances that have finally boiled over. Protests over fuel and water have merged into a unified movement demanding the regime's overthrow. Millions fill the streets, erasing the line between protest and rebellion. The revolution is leaderless but highly organized at the grassroots, with teachers, workers, students, and even retired officials joining in. The regime's old tactic of dividing groups has failed. Solidarity now spans ethnic and social lines. In cities from Zahedan to Tabriz, protesters stand together, demanding a secular democratic future. Marches have become direct confrontations. Statues toppled, government buildings burned, police stations overrun. In some towns, local councils have replaced state authority. This is not just protest, it's the forging of a new political reality, block by block. The revolution's engine is an economy in freefall. Once bustling markets and lively neighborhoods now echo with silence, as businesses shutter and livelihoods vanish overnight. The sense of loss is everywhere, felt in every empty street and closed storefront. Iran's government is not just politically bankrupt, it's literally out of money. Years of mismanagement, corruption, and crippling international sanctions have drained the nation's coffers. The state's promises to its people have become hollow as public services grind to a halt and government offices sit abandoned. In 2025, officials admitted to selling off gold reserves and printing trillions in unbacked currency, unleashing hyperinflation. The desperate measures only deepened the crisis, as the value of the rial plummeted and trust in the financial system evaporated. The rial is now nearly worthless, with inflation soaring and basic goods out of reach for most families. Everyday essentials, bread, milk, medicine, have become luxuries. Parents skip meals so their children can eat, and savings built over a lifetime are wiped out in weeks. The government's desperate move to slash zeros from the currency did nothing to stop the collapse. New banknotes circulate, but their value evaporates almost as soon as they're printed. People carry bags of cash just to buy a loaf of bread, and faith in the rial is gone. Daily life is defined by empty shelves, endless fuel lines, and the fear of hunger. Families wait for hours hoping to find food or gasoline, only to return home empty-handed. The struggle for survival overshadows every aspect of life. Economic institutions are paralyzed by infighting, while infrastructure crumbles. Projects are abandoned mid-construction, and ministries once tasked with rebuilding the nation are now scenes of chaos and blame. Power outages and pollution crises have become routine. Blackouts plunge neighborhoods into darkness, while thick smog chokes the air, making even breathing a daily challenge. The public sees the regime as both corrupt and incompetent. Frustration boils over in the streets, as citizens demand answers and accountability from leaders who seem increasingly out of touch. Pensions and salaries are worthless, strikes are daily, and the social safety net is gone. The elderly wait in vain for payments that never come, while workers risk everything to protest for their rights. The choice for many Iranians: starve quietly or fight for change. Families huddle together, sharing what little they have, while the young take to the streets, risking their lives for a better future. The government's last shred of legitimacy has vanished. Once revered symbols of authority now lie in ruins, and the halls of power are empty. Economic despair has turned simmering anger into open rebellion. Across Iran, the cry for change grows louder, as hardship fuels a revolution that can no longer be contained. The regime's religious authority is collapsing. Once united, the clerical establishment is now openly divided. Prominent clerics in Qom and Mashhad denounce the regime's brutality, arguing it betrays Islam's core values. Viral videos show these dissenting sermons, breaking the link between faith and loyalty to the state. Protesters confront mullahs in the streets, knocking off turbans in a powerful act of defiance. The awe once commanded by the clergy has turned to ridicule and anger. The regime's spiritual legitimacy is gone, leaving only brute force. A state that rules by violence alone cannot last. The Islamic Republic is now a hollow shell, its collapse seemingly inevitable. As Iranians risk their lives, the regime's elite are plotting their escape. Intelligence reports show a surge in visa applications by officials' families to Europe. The hypocrisy is glaring. Those demanding loyalty are sending their own children abroad. News of this elite exodus has gutted morale among security forces and bureaucrats. The ruling class's flight is a clear admission of defeat and ideological bankruptcy. Their revolutionary zeal was always a mask for self-enrichment. The sight of the elite fleeing boosts protesters' morale, confirming the regime's weakness. The revolution is winning as the powerful abandon ship. The regime's security forces are fracturing under pressure. Police and Bassage units, themselves suffering from economic collapse, are losing faith in the system. Reports of desertion, defection, and refusal to fire on protesters are spreading. Officers are abandoning posts, removing uniforms, and joining the crowds. The hypocrisy of leaders fleeing while demanding loyalty has created a crisis of trust. The regular army and lower IRGC ranks, drawn from the same suffering families, now face a choice: fire on their own, or stand with the people. The regime's last line of defense is wavering. The revolution's fate may rest on the conscience of young soldiers. Across Iran, the regime's once sacred symbols are being torn down in the streets. What was once unthinkable, openly defacing the emblems of power, has become a daily act of defiance. The air is thick with the energy of a people reclaiming their public spaces, as crowds gather to dismantle the icons that have dominated their lives for decades. Statues and portraits of Khamenei, and Soleimani are not just being removed, they're being set ablaze, stomped on, and shattered in public squares. These acts are more than symbolic. They are a loud collective rejection of the regime's authority and the personalities that have shaped Iran's recent history. The aura of fear that once protected these idols has evaporated. As statues fall and monuments crumble, the people celebrate, their cheers echoing through the streets. The revolution's icons, once untouchable, are now toppled by the very citizens they claim to represent. Meanwhile, social media buzzes with rumors that Supreme Leader Khamenei is preparing to flee to Moscow. These whispers, whether true or not, have a powerful effect, further eroding the regime's carefully crafted image of strength and control. The idea that the highest authority might abandon the country is both shocking and galvanizing. The possibility of the supreme leader running from his own people is the ultimate symbol of a failed state. Government offices stand empty, and palatial gates are left unguarded, as if the very heart of power is hollowing out before the nation's eyes. In this growing vacuum, new symbols and names begin to surface. Most notably, the name of Reza Pahlavi, the exiled son of the last Shah, appears on banners, graffiti and lips across the country. For many, he represents a break from the past, a possible bridge to a different future. For a new generation, Reza Pahlavi is not necessarily a call for monarchy's return, but a symbol of secularism, democracy, and hope. Young Iranians gather in cafes and on street corners, debating what a new Iran could look like, one that is free from both religious rule and the shadows of the past. His call for a free and fair vote resonates deeply with a population hungry for change. The idea of choosing their own destiny, of having a real say in their country's future, inspires hope and determination in the crowds. As old regime posters are torn down and new murals appear, the destruction of outdated symbols is making way for a new national vision. Artists and activists alike are reimagining what it means to be Iranian in the 21st century. Iranians are not just tearing down the past, they're daring to imagine a future built on hope, unity, and the promise of a new beginning. For years, Iran's best and brightest fled repression by immigrating. Now, a new generation is making a different choice. They're staying to fight. The cost of leaving is too high, and the sense of reclaiming their country is stronger than ever. Young Iranians are on the front lines, organizing, documenting, and resisting with unprecedented resolve. They see the regime as an occupying force, not a legitimate government. Their fight is for liberation, not reform. The regime can no longer count on critics leaving. Instead, it faces a determined internal enemy. The brain drain has become a brain gain for the revolution. Talented youth are building a new Iran on the streets, not in exile. This refusal to flee has transformed protest into a fight to the finish. The regime faces a generation with nothing left to lose. The regime's fate now hinges on the military's loyalty. The police are overwhelmed, the elite are fleeing, and religious authority has collapsed. The regular army and IRGC must choose, obey orders to crush the people, or stand with them. Most soldiers are young men from the same towns, now in revolt, suffering the same hardships. Will they defend a corrupt system or refuse to fire on their own? History shows that when militaries side with the people, regimes fall. Every act of defiance brings the revolution closer to victory. Iran stands at a crossroads, a swift fall and new era, or descent into chaos if the military remains divided. The world watches as Iran faces its moment of truth.